I just want anyone to know that is struggling with any single thing. I promise, I will guarantee that if you just do the next right indicated action and just show up and start to do this work, it's going to work out better than you could ever imagine. I had a really turbulent childhood with a lot of childhood trauma, and I always hated myself. I always was a victim to my environment. And I used drugs and alcohol, and I was suicidal. First time I tried to kill myself, I was 7 years old. And I always got this messaging that I was sick because I had illnesses as a child. And what ended up happening is 10 years ago, I got sober. And that was like the first time in my life where I stopped being a victim. Like I did the steps and I was like, oh, okay, like, wow, I have hope for a future. Because I actually was gonna commit suicide. And, but I still had suicidal thoughts. I would be okay and then I wouldn't be okay. And then 3 years ago, in 2019, I got sick. And I was, the stressful thing happened and it just, I was obsessed with it. I would be like, what's wrong with me? I was covered head to toe in rashes and my mental health was not good. And I was just covered head to toe on fire. And I would go to the doctors and they would be like, oh, well, it's stress. And, I don't know what's really wrong with you. And so, it kept happening and happening. And then this one person tested something in my blood and they were like, oh my God, you have severe mold toxicity. You have the worst mold I've ever seen. And so that put me on this thing where I surrendered and believed that I had severe mold toxicity. And then I just became really scared of my environment. And I would be obsessed with looking at, all the things of mold and what's wrong. And, oh, well, I used to have Lyme disease and they're saying that's reactivated. And, oh, Epstein-Barr. And I would just be obsessed. But I was so scared of everything that I would spend thousands of dollars on tests for dust samples to see if there was going to be mold somewhere. I couldn't, go anywhere. And everyone around me, I became just constantly saying the story over and over again. I'm this victim and they don't know how to treat it. And I have to take this, but they don't know. And then, because I had breast implants, I was like, oh, how am I so poisoned with mold? Maybe it's the breast implants. So I got those out. And then my blood work was actually worse. And then this doctor was like, you are so sick that the lab called to see if I was treating you in the hospital. And he was going through my blood work and being like, how are you so sick? How are you so sick? And that was the moment where I believed that, and everything just kept getting worse and worse. Somebody told me about Dr. Joe, and I downloaded You Are the Placebo, and I started listening to it, and I was like, oh my God. This is it. It's my thoughts. It was like that aha light bulb moment where I just knew that I created this, because even though I thought I was doing better or my life was okay, once my sickness started and I kept getting worse and worse, I knew it was my thoughts constantly creating that. And I thought that if my thoughts could make me sick, then they could also make me well. And I just would listen to the book. And then I would watch the testimonials and I would be like, okay, this is my shot. This is what's gonna change my life. And I ended up exactly a year ago. I turned 10 years sober this past Saturday, but a year ago, I ended up coming to Cancun, and my room they gave me was all the way at the end, and I was limping, and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to walk? I'm gonna have to ask them for a different room. And then I was trying to think of the placebo and but hobbling and then so afraid of my knee coming out. Oh my God, what if my knee is gonna come out and then they're gonna have an ambulance come into the event. And I was just so trying to, overcome my body. And the first walking meditation, I don't know what happened, but I was bawling my eyes out hysterically. And I made a decision with the amplitude greater than whatever that was. And I was like, I can walk. And then I was walking like I was Naomi Campbell on the runway, through the ocean. And I was just like, oh my God, I could walk. And I was just bawling my eyes out. And then I just made that decision. I can walk. And then the event just kept getting better and better. And I just started to really connect to the divine and love myself and met incredible people. And I felt my energy just rising and I was manifesting things and I knew I was changed. In Nashville, I ended up being a healee. And the first healing, again, I was kind of a little nervous and scared. And he said, all I want you to do is be open to possibility. And I just laid there and I was just like, I am open to possibility. And the healing ended, and I honestly felt like I took 10 e-pills. And as I said, I'm 9 years sober at the time. I know what ecstasy is like. And I was like, oh my God. And I'm like, I'm healed. I went back home and I tested my blood, and the mold was like 80% gone. My liver was normal for the first time in 3 years, and my life just kept getting better and better. I can't even imagine thinking about suicide. I can't even, that seems so insane to me now, and I just have so much compassion and so much love for that person that, went through that, and I am grateful. And when he says that, like, when you're grateful for your past and everything that you went through, like, every single thing led me to here right now, and I know that deeply. I want things that I never thought were possible. Like, I believe, like, I used to have a different belief, a negative belief, this victim mentality, and now I just truly believe at the depths of my soul that I am completely unlimited, I'm connected to source, and the most wild, unexpected things happen, and I'm just so grateful.